Alrighty. This one's called Perverse Incentives. It's going to be difficult. It's going to stretch my capacity more than anything else I've ever done, I think, because it's we're basically we're in such a strange landscape of new dimensional threats to our livelihood and well-being. Incredibly difficult. So we have, if I have a deep structural concern about the digital economic model, because mainly because of it is too easy to obscure interconnections between diverse things and then hide that in absolutely out of control technological connections that will inevitably result into a concentration camp model. Okay, and this just wasn't this wasn't the status quo. There's always been counterfeit currencies and fraud and coin clipping, and there's been all of these things. There's been money laundering. There's been corruption. But this is a new, and there's been societal capture via currency. Okay, just not at this level. Not full immersion, and it didn't affect. And there was counterbalances. Like if you think of like the religion and the churches were the counterbalance, and so this is the result of a godless world is enslaved by godless people. It's like that's pretty much what everyone who's religiously minded would say. They're like, well, you kill God, you enslave yourself by godless people enslave you. It's like that's the point. But yeah, there's new. So it's like I could say, all right, we're going to go back to cash. Cash is king. Unfortunately, cash isn't king. Our technologies are too good. Our international shipping and distribution is too high. So it's we're not in the world anymore of creating locally these hacks. It's like we've got to compete with global interference, and it's like and multi-dimensional attacks on our well-being and our currency and our livelihoods and our literal social cohesion from top to bottom. The only solution I can see is a checkpoint, right? If you think that this exists, if an airport, if you go to an airport, you go to check. There's a checkpoint, okay? And that's what we don't have. We have that in the sense of the banks, but it's like, well, I don't trust our banks. Our banks are displaying themselves as creators of this thing, and they're not respecting individual flow. They're national, cooperatives, and they have consented and financed and allowed this thing that I'm in deep criticism of. And so they are terrorists, not in the normal sense, because the normal kind of bank hating. There's a normal suspicious, it's like, that's not what I'm talking about, because no banks have ever done this before, because they're not our banks. That's the other thing. It's like banks did some things, but they were our banks. These banks are not our banks. They're foreign banks. They've experimented with absolutely unacceptable fucking methodologies and mentalities, and that's the entire structure. So it's like, if you pay people with money from a foreign bank that's creating a concentration camp, why would they ever defend against any other fucking infiltrations like drugs, pornography, child pornography, social chaos, they're not going to. They don't care. It shouldn't be beyond the realm right now for all Australians to absolutely 100% declare that our banks are collectively working to sabotage our country. They are not in alignment with the physical reality of any period of time ever. Not to do with our urban sprawl and our debt load and all these things. It's like there's a point, isn't there? There's a point where the Australian citizens get to vote and say, listen, you're not a bank anymore. You're a construction firm that's financing and administrating a concentration camp on foreign territory. And so our ARB, the Australian Reserve Bank, is like, what are you exactly? What are you doing? What on earth are you fucking doing? And I expect an answer. I don't need money to live here. That's a ridiculous statement, because what is that money attached to? Your game, your sabotage game is inflation. And you're not the arbiters of inflationary protocol anymore. And I'm guessing this is Paul Keating's fault. I'm guessing Paul Keating signed all the relevant paperwork to do this. Well, he didn't sign it from my fucking family's consideration and on my family's behalf. Not at all. I don't represent anything to do with the federal government of Australia any longer. As far as I'm concerned, every single, systemic decision that was made since Paul Keating has been illegal, as far as my understanding and consideration of the Australian federal government and its connection to the Commonwealth or its connection to the British Empire. It's like Paul Keating, in a back alley somewhere, sold out every single Australian, probably for nothing more than a fucking blowjob. I don't know exactly what he got out of the fucking equation, but it's like, it's pretty fucking bad. And it's not conforming to what were just considered as baseline, expectations of a country as large, and from the foundations, from the pre-existing place. Like it's not a continuation of British culture. It's an outcrop that was sold into an experimental, control system. And this is stagnation. The ARB, their job is to meticulously present fraudulently the illusion of a stable economy, of a stable, uninflating, claiming that their manipulation of these points, like, oh, we're only at 4.4 inflation rate. No, we're not. There's literally junky fucking crack whores selling themselves, sticking pineapples up their assholes to the world. We're not at 4.4% fucking inflation, or we're at 4.5%. No, we're not. The horrors of inflation can only, they have a connection with the societal world, not in numbers. This whole entrapment construction of this digital concentration camp is by numbers. God doesn't mention any numbers really. He might say Noah had this many children. I don't know, because I'm not that much of a scholar. But it's like, it was Adam and Eve. It was, he didn't say that there were 2 apple cores on the ground, which he should have. Not one. Who shares apples? Especially in this modern economy, where all of this fucking fraudulent. Because what is it? That is. What's the word? Counterfeit. Counterfeit. Counterfeit means like not fit for purpose, like counter to the purpose of the thing. It's counterfeit, right? So if our Australian Reserve Bank is distributing counterfeit logic using algorithmic, wizardry, while it builds a prison majoritively using algorithmic wizardry to confine and to degrade and to, exploit the people. It's like, what is the purpose of the Australian Reserve Bank? It's not self-service. It's not, And it's like, where are we at here? There's a lot of ways to be counterfeit within this digital landscape. This is why I don't think there is a solution within the digital world. I think the digital world needs to become what it always was, or it needs to be restored to what it always was. It's a nightmare. It is a fucking nightmare. And if we replaced the online information, if we securely distributed knowledge in the case of libraries. So it's like, if I was King Charles right now, what would I do? I would institute the Library Act, which was a controlled network of libraries, not churches, libraries, that contain the knowledge of the world, carefully selected and made sure that it wasn't counterfeit to the reality of the world. And I would distribute those libraries. I would use closed network computing systems, not connected to the internet, to distribute those libraries so that you could ride your push bike to the library and make sure that you are informed appropriately. You can take a device to the library, you can download the thing, you can interact with AI, you can do all these things, right? And that is what I aspire to. That is the extension of Scale Matters. That's maybe the first step that we make to Scale Matters. Maybe the first Scale Matters devices are placed in libraries. You know what I mean? A closed network that is unable to be counterfeited by imported counterfeits. It is not controlled by algorithmic control or manipulation. This is the thing. It's like you move the whole fucking container and you miss everything. You miss absolutely everything. So we need to start. See, it's like, why do they give us an inflation rate? Well, they give us an inflation rate to project the counterfeit situation of stable, not inflation, based on a snapshot of a pre-existing time where they actually were, the central banks were doing that responsibly. And now they're not doing it responsibly. Now they're doing it fraudulently. And they're presenting a counterfeit inflation rate that doesn't connect to anything at all. Not really. You know what I mean? It's like, you're not going to, it's almost like the caricature would be, and I'm just going to imagine he's an Italian, because they experimented deeply with the type of fascism that would be required to perpetuate this. He's like, oh, no, my daughter is being kidnapped in the van. She is being stolen and taken away. I do not understand how this happened when the interest rate is only 4.5% from the RBA, from the Reserve Bank of Australia. Okay? Now, I think what happened is we had a bunch of fascist Italians rock up right when Paul Keating, they were just getting their fucking hooks into our country, right when Paul Keating got a fucking offer that was too good to refuse, okay? Paul Keating, you're not listen, okay? We said coming from Italy, we do this, we keep it a 4.5% interest, all right? Okay? We keep it a 4.5% interest, right? But we change everything else, okay? We have a computer that will keep it right at the 4.5%, and everything else will change. You will see it will work. It will work good, huh? It worked so good in Italy. We got collectively, we got the axe and we wrapped it with sticks and we fucking, we Heil Hitler and if it wasn't for that German, you don't listen to the Germans when you're doing a fascism, okay? If you want to do a fascism properly, you got to listen to me, okay, Paul? And there is a boy. It has been spoken around town. There is a boy. His name is Tony. His name is Tony Albanese, okay? He is going to be our Jesus Christ. As long as Tony Albanese, it's a turn of the 2021, which is the disclosed. This is the situation where we start playing with the reality of the world, and we bring the little baby Jesus, Tony Albanese, to the forefront, and we allow him to take his position as the emperor of Australia under the Catholic majority fascist Mussolini-inspired fucking Australia. It's like, fuck off. Fuck off. No one in Australia, right, agrees that our interest rate is at 4.5%. In fact, I figured out the interest rate collectively accrued on my mother's fucking sinful hijacking of my father's property was upwards of like I think it was 33,000, but let's just say 3,000. 3,000% over 40 years. Right? And that's just the money. That's not incorporating any of the social decline, which turns, a welfare protected, promiscuous young woman, experimenting with some, fringe religious spiritual practices. And now we have like en masse, digital prostitutes, mainlining fucking methamphetamine and pharmaceutical drugs. You know what I mean? It's like, well, already the financial situation is at 3,000%, and 40 times 4.5 does not equal 3,000. It just doesn't. And then the social decline of that example that I just gave, that amplifies the inflation to levels that are ridiculous. So it's like, what are the charges for that? What is the charges for counterfeit currency? Because that's what it is. It's like, if you falsely represent the currency to the Australian people, that's counterfeit. You're a counterfeit bank. You're producing counterfeit notes. You are counterfeiters as the Australian Reserve Bank. Are you not? I could be wrong. It seems like this is all coming right at the time where you've done everything in your powers to try and attempt to prevent King Charles III's head being on our coinage and on our notes. Because that would be a great time to re-establish an appropriate comparison to gold or something like that. And I suppose we have to get through the archives. We have to find out, how much gold did it take to get your dick sucked in a back alley in Melbourne in 1901? How much gold? What was the weight? What was the weight of gold? And then we have to remember as well that at the early history of Melbourne, they were pulling gold out of the ground like it was fucking like syringes at a public playground in 2026. So this is a way that we could utilize comparative economics to establish the fact whether the Australian Reserve Bank is actually a global counterfeiting operation, that is very, very sophisticatedly, in a very sophisticated manner, sought to enslave the entire population of Australia and encapsulate them in a digital concentration camp, which would be a crime. And it's what the fascists did. It is what the fascists did. And so, I'd say it's a pretty fair assumption. We can see the introduction of these methodologies being established at the appropriate time when the introduced Italian population would have reached an influential percentage of the thing. And then we can align that with precedent of their fascist thing. We can align that with the Ukrainian claims of National Socialism and Nazi connection, neo-Nazi connection. We can tie up all the dots and find that OnlyFans is a Ukrainian fascist. Do you know, it seems like we're in World War II again. It seems like we're in World War II again, right? But it seems like the game is between the freehold landowners of Australia, you know, the Crown being a rather large participant in that, obviously the Aboriginal people being a very large contributor to that, and then the pioneering families of Australia having freehold ownership of their land. And so we need to do a comparison between the freehold land, the Crown land, the Aboriginal title, and the claimed inflation rate by the Australian Reserve Bank. And I would say that some people at the end of that equation should be arrested, most notably the Prime Minister, the chairman of the Reserve Bank, the chairman of all the four big banks of Australia. You know, a large majority of home builders, a large majority of property developers, a large, just, you know, public servants. There's a really big problem. There's a really big problem going on in Australia that is being disguised by fucking a couple of numbers and a fucking funny symbol. Yeah. Oh, well, fucking, you know, they always say the banks are fucked. Oh, it's like I put all my money in the fucking Bank of England's vault. You know, call me old-fashioned, but that old fucking lady of Threadneedle, you know, I like to have a personal relationship with my bank managers. Yeah, very unfortunate series of events here between, you know, this is the ashes of international finance, isn't it? Where, you know, it's time for a showdown between the old lady of Threadneedle and the newcomer, the steroid injected fucking genetically modified fucking, you know, holographically fucking supernatural Australia Reserve Bank of Australia. It's got some magic. It's like a unicorn as far as, you know, no wonder. I suppose it's no different to what I'm doing. I'm presenting the image of a woman here, and I'm in fact have a penis. And the Australian Reserve Bank is imitating what it believes a Reserve Bank is supposed to do and is legally, you know, entitled to do, legally required to do. And in fact, it is a fucking make-believe rainbow farting unicorn projecting constant stability while deteriorating the underlying value assets of the collective population of Australia. Thank you.